Some moments in life arrive without announcement, slipping through the cracks of our carefully constructed routines to reveal who we truly are, when no one's watching. For Rebecca Martinez, that moment came on a bitter February morning when the wind cut through Chicago's streets like broken glass, and she made a choice that would change everything. She had no idea that someone was witnessing her every move, that her simple act of kindness was being observed by eyes that could transform her entire existence. Rebecca had worked the overnight shift at County General Hospital for 6 years. As a nursing assistant, she'd held the hands of dying patients, cleaned wounds that made her stomach turn, and smiled through exhaustion that settled into her bones like old age. At 28, she looked 35. At 35, she'd probably look 50. That's what poverty does. It ages you in dog years. That morning, walking toward the bus stop with her scrubs still smelling faintly of disinfectant, Rebecca noticed him. An elderly man sat slumped against the brick wall of a closed pharmacy, his weathered face gray with cold. Most people hurried past, their eyes fixed firmly ahead, practicing that special urban blindness that lets you survive the city without breaking your heart 50 times a day. Rebecca stopped. She didn't have time to stop. She was already late getting home to her daughter, Maya, who'd been staying with their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, since yesterday afternoon. She didn't have money to stop. Her wallet held exactly $12.37 until Friday's paycheck. She definitely didn't have energy to stop, not after pulling a double shift because Sandra called in sick again. But she stopped anyway. "Sir, are you okay?" She knelt beside him, her knee pressing into the freezing concrete. The man's eyes opened slowly, clouded with confusion and something deeper, resignation. "Cold," he managed. His lips were tinged blue. Rebecca didn't hesitate. She pulled off her own winter coat, the one she'd bought at Goodwill 3 years ago and repaired twice, and wrapped it around his trembling shoulders. "Let me call an ambulance." "No." His hand, surprisingly strong, gripped her wrist. "No hospitals, no money. They'll just let me leave." She knew he was probably right. She'd seen it happen too many times. "Okay," she said softly. "But you can't stay here, come on." What happened next would seem impossible to anyone who didn't know Rebecca. She somehow maneuvered this stranger to his feet, supported his weight, and guided him 2 blocks to a shelter she knew stayed open. Not the city shelter that was always full, but a small church-run place that Sister Margaret operated on prayers and miracles, before she left him in Sister Margaret's capable hands. Rebecca pressed something into the man's palm. It was a $20 bill, one of the 2 she'd been keeping, in her phone case for absolute emergencies. "Get something hot to eat," she whispered. "And stay inside today." She left wearing just her thin scrubs top and cardigan, shivering as she hurried to catch a bus that had already pulled away from the stop. What Rebecca didn't know was that across the street, sitting in the back of a black sedan with tinted windows, someone had watched the entire scene unfold. James Whitmore III was a ghost of sorts, not the supernatural kind, but the kind that wealth creates, invisible by choice, observing life from behind glass and security details. At 47, he'd built an empire in real estate and technology, amassed a fortune that financial magazines speculated about in hushed, envious tones. But lately, success felt like ashes in his mouth. 6 months ago, his father had died, leaving James with not just billions, but a final letter that haunted his dreams. "You've built monuments to yourself. But what have you built for others? Money is easy. Character is what costs." Those words had hollowed him out. For months, James had been conducting a private experiment. He'd had his assistant identify essential workers in the city, nurses, teachers, home health aides, people society claimed to value but paid like they didn't. Then he'd follow them, watch them, learn who they were when cameras weren't rolling and audiences weren't watching. Most were good enough, decent. They did their jobs, went home, lived their lives. Nothing wrong with that. But Rebecca was different. James had been observing her for 2 weeks, and she'd astounded him repeatedly. She bought coffee for the homeless vet outside her building every morning, even though it meant she skipped her own. She tutored neighborhood kids in reading for free on her days off. She'd once given blood, then immediately volunteered for an extra shift when the hospital was short-staffed, despite being told she should rest. But this morning's act? giving away her coat, her emergency money, sacrificing her own comfort and safety for a complete stranger. James felt something crack open in his chest. This was what his father had meant. This was character. He made a decision that would have terrified most people. Find out everything about her, he told his assistant, Marcus. Everything. And arrange a meeting. 3 days later, Rebecca received a letter delivered by courier to her cramped two-bedroom apartment. The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, expensive. She opened it with Maya climbing on her back, sticky from the popsicle she'd been eating. The letter was bizarre. It invited her to meet with James, Whitmore III, regarding a matter of significant importance and mutual benefit. It provided a date, time, and address. A downtown office building she'd only ever seen from the outside. All steel and glass reaching toward the clouds. Rebecca almost threw it away. It had to be a scam, right? Rich people didn't contact nursing assistants from County General. But something, curiosity, desperation, or maybe that same instinct that made her stop for strangers in the cold, made her keep the appointment. The office was intimidating. Everything was polished marble and hushed voices, expensive art on the walls. Rebecca wore her only professional outfit. A black dress she'd worn to her grandmother's funeral, paired with shoes that pinched her toes. When James Whitmore walked into the conference room, she recognized him immediately. She'd seen his face in magazines at the grocery store checkout. "Ms. Martinez, thank you for coming." His handshake was warm, his eyes kind. Not what she expected. "I'll get straight to the point because I imagine you're confused and possibly frightened." "A little," Rebecca admitted, her heart hammering. "Last Tuesday morning I saw you give your coat to a homeless man. And your last $20. James paused. "I've been watching you for 2 weeks, Rebecca. I know that sounds creepy and I apologize, but I was looking for something. Someone." Rebecca's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "For months I've been searching for genuinely good people. Not people who do good when it's convenient or visible, but people who sacrifice when no one's watching. People who give from poverty, not from abundance." His voice grew thick with emotion. "You have a 9-year-old daughter. You work 60-hour weeks. You have $17,000 in medical debt from when your daughter had pneumonia. Your car died 3 months ago. Your apartment has mold in the bathroom that your landlord won't fix. And still, you gave away your coat." Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. Having her life laid bare like this, her struggles, her failures, her poverty, was excruciating. "I don't understand," she whispered. James slid an envelope across the table. "My father left me a challenge. To find people like you and give them what they've already given the world, a chance. Inside this envelope is a check for $500,000. No strings. Use it however you need. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a position overseeing charitable initiatives at Whitmore Foundation, salary of $150,000 annually, full benefits, and flexible hours so you can actually see your daughter." Rebecca couldn't breathe. The room tilted. "Why?" "Because you're what the world should be," James said simply. "Because kindness should be rewarded, not punished. Because your daughter deserves to see her mother's goodness repaid." He leaned forward. "Rebecca, you thought no one was watching that morning. But I was. And what I saw reminded me that humanity isn't dead, it's just exhausted and underpaid." The meeting lasted 2 hours. Rebecca cried, laughed, questioned, and finally shakily accepted. She left the building with her life transformed, carrying not just a check, but validation that her choices mattered, that the goodness she poured into an indifferent world had been seen, valued, cherished. That evening, Rebecca held Maya close on their lumpy couch in their moldy apartment, but not for much longer. "Baby," she whispered into her daughter's hair, "something amazing happened today." "What, Mama?" Someone was watching. "And they saw us. Really saw us." She kissed Maya's forehead. "And everything's going to be okay now." Across town, James sat in his penthouse feeling lighter than he had in months. He thought about his father's letter, about the hollow ache that had lived in his chest since reading it. For the first time, he understood. Wealth wasn't measured in what you kept. It was measured in what you gave and who you chose to see. Sometimes the greatest treasures hide in plain sight, wrapped in scrubs and exhaustion and a kind heart that refuses to quit. Rebecca had thought she was alone that freezing morning. invisible in her goodness. But she was wrong. Someone was watching. And that changed everything.